good. That's good to hear, man. Yeah.
Well, I've heard.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to hear that.
Are y'all gonna entertain? Yeah, I want to know if y'all. What? That's a good question. Y'all ever just talk together?
Not really.
We've got.
I mean, obviously, we do our podcast and we talk to.
Yeah, we always talk together.
You're like, no.
No, everyone
I can
that
see
comes
that.
up,
I mean, I can see that. You know,
everyone has always thought that, which I'm cool with.
it is. Yeah, that's actually you can see it too. It's really cool. Dang, dude. It's like a Mario and Luigi. You
There's
know?
people that actually like talk to him thinking it was me.
No.
And all that. Yeah, and we caught one guy doing it because he was telling him something about me. And Paul was like, "Yeah, cool." And then he comes in, and he like looks at me, and goes, "No, like, yeah, we're not the
Well, a lot of
same."
times I do know what's going on because like we obviously discuss.
Yeah.
So someone was
I had all this stuff I read the other day, but then I was trying to save myself, and I couldn't get it.
No, I thought about it.
It was late night, dude. It was like
Yeah.
a Monday night. It was this past Monday. We were out doing like a podcast.
Hurt?
And I was like,
Not at all. Why would that's
"Don't
not the
guide
question?
you." I said, "Don't
No.
do this
So I
here."
went
This
to
is no line. It's just because they were 20 gauges, and so when we advanced,
Depends on who does it. So I love them doing it. I mean, it's
Dude, I'm starting using 22s.
oh yeah, I used 22 since they were out of it. The like McKesson is where we get our supplies from.
Who did you get your supplies from?
McKesson.
Was that like a
Yeah, we order everything
Oh,
online.
I
So
don't even like looking
in
at
that sense, you can always, if you ever need anything, let me know. But it's just McKesson, like they have their own
like when the
supplies.
sun don't shine?
Okay. Just write it down, and then I'll do it.
No. Okay, that I don't like.
Outside of your vein, right?
For what?
NIV. I've had that happen.
Oh yeah, what infiltrates? Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens. I mean,
And they're like, oh, your arm.
It can.
Gotta take it out.
yeah,
Like,
it happens.
here, come on, yes, take it out.
Just depending on people's veins sometimes, because you have a lot of pressure going through there, right?
Yeah. Just hold your breath and cross your fingers. Usually works.
I mean, people have a phobia of it, right? That's just what it comes down to. Bias has been a big sport in the meantime, because a lot of times this guy, yeah, like he's got good circulation. So the first time I did it, I was like, and I was trying to stop.
No, dude, the one time.
Yeah, and the very first time, the second time, too, I think. And of course, people were sitting there watching. And it's funny because Joy's husband hates it. Joy's fried cheese, and like, I think he was sitting there watching something all the time. And he was like, the sweat. He said, "Are you next?" He's like,
Dude, that's what had happened. You weren't here. I was talking with Mike. Dude, and we were sitting across the thing in that chair, and I had NAD. Dude, I thought it was exploding. Like it was super concentrated. Hi, Ishmael. Good to meet you, sir.
Ishmael.
Zach, I read a couple pages that was way over my head.
I like
when
that hat, bro.
read it at the end
Thank
of
you.
15. So now I think I can digest it. But I love the
Oh, it is your hat.
You're deeply philosophical. I was like, this is not
Nice.
Yeah, obviously.
Is it around?
Literally my
I saw you on Facebook, and you're holding a flag that says "Live a Great Story."
Dude, I'm so
Yeah.
hungry.
We have a lot of mutual friends, so
Cool. Yeah, everyone get food. If everyone hasn't signed in, try to sign in at the front. What are you into? How do I know you are?
well, I'm into resetting the brain, the central nervous system.
Very cool.
Can you give me some like talking poses?
Talking pose? You want me to do like?
Exactly. Captain Morgan.
Right. Well, we filmed a little bit. And it was at the Red Ocean Lab.
Yeah.
Wear robes.
I'm coming here so I can
And I got a text from friends Tuesday morning, and Mary first thing, and she goes, "Hey, I can see Baldo's." Yeah, because he was moving around and you could see it, and I was like, God bless.
That's so funny. You
Somebody
posted that
texted me, I
picture?
can see the mouse. Put the mouse back in the house. That's what they said.
Oh no.
Because all three of us were sitting there and we were in just robes.
That's
And we're all
hilarious.
zenned out, and I said to Tom, close your legs, like you're
Oh
right in the
my
middle.
God.
Yeah, so he's like sitting there, and I'm like starting that. I need to go like this. And it's
Well, is it his fault? He's he's well endowed. Yeah, he is. He's like probably making a drink. hilarious.
So I think,
So we're not a family company anymore?
well, we deleted it right away, man. We're still a family company now. We don't want to offend anyone.
Was it live? Versus
Somebody said it might increase sales, and I was like,
Yeah, right,
I don't
exactly.
know. We'll go viral for the wrong reason.
All those, yeah, lonely housewives.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, they talk to Baldo when they come in. They like him.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So there's I think a quinoa stuffed bell pepper. There's a chutney actually, and then there's that's orange soup. That's the chutney. There's a soup. And there's like a soup mix of it.
You also know what's happening here, an organic meal.
Yeah.
I'm gonna eat with my idea. I think you can pull it off.
The foundation is all about inspiring.
Yeah, I tried to do it in my apartment in any place at least.
To inspire people
It's like
to move forward in their journey.
I go through it, so I have to like talk
Figure out
about
who they are, what they're working on, what they're excited about, and
Dude, I'm freaking
people embark on that journey.
Dude, it's just nice.
Down that road and inspire people to do the same.
15-foot
Since you're a great story, it's a media lifestyle company. We sell a bunch of stuff. Sell this, sell the flag.
I was so spoiled. I like start from the bottom down here. It's so privileged. I woke up here, had on a shirt, barefoot, went to the world. And I'll say you shirt.
I will tell you right now.
Yeah, dude.
It is a sauce from Indian culture. It's like a tomato spicy coconut dip. Sometimes has peanut in it as well. Baldo, you ready to start? All right.
Yeah, actually.
All right. Charles, can I start with you right there?
Rowdy, Zach.
All right, let's get the show on the road. For anyone who still needs to grab a bite to eat, please go grab it from our wonderful friends right to your door. They are locally sourced from local organic farms, and they are all prepped with the intent of zero waste, which I think is one of the coolest concepts you can find in a food company. You can talk to them and figure out how many steps it takes to get that food from the farm to here, and it's a lot. And we're very proud of the idea that it's a rotating seasonal menu in the falls here. So we have a lot of pumpkin blends over there. I think there's a pumpkin soup or something over there. I've tried the quinoa stuffed bell peppers. They're delicious. Actually, I have avocados in it, which is great. A big fan of avocados. And that kind of leads us into our lunch and learn for this week. So I want to thank everyone for coming. Last week, we had a really great talk with Baldo. He was our first guest speaker. He talked about fasting. And it was a packed house. People were real interested in the idea of what fasting really is. Fasting is a central part of a lot of cultures here and religions here in the world. And the idea that you can fast for longer than 24 hours is almost unheard of, but nowadays it's becoming a trend. I saw an HEB commercial the other day that's now promoting intermittent fasting. It was the simple meals that they were talking about. I guess the commercial opens up with this couple getting ready for a family dinner or friends dinner or whatever, and like so-and-so's vegan now, so-and-so's paleo, so-and-so's keto, and like, fine, I'll take care of this. And he did all the simple meals, and we're just sitting there at dinner. One lady goes and she looks at her watch and everyone's like, what? She's like, go ahead and eat. I got 12 minutes, intermittent fasting. So I was like, that's kind of cool or progressive. So when we talk about fasting, there's a lot of health benefits behind it, but then when you actually eat in that 4-hour window throughout the day, or when you do finally break your fast, it has to be very specific. And when you talk about food, it is nutrients. And that's why the Lunch and Learn has been created, because the idea that you're going to get wonderful nutrients from food over there is very true. But one of the reasons why we pride ourselves in providing wonderful meals like Prep to Your Door is because of the organic quality that you find in it. And I really am passionate about this topic today, which is involving pesticides. And the reason why is because we love food. Here in Austin, we're a food community. We have a couple of food companies represented here today. I love foodies. Hey, Charles. Where's Charles at? Let me get this part. The idea that you can actually have a couple of people come in here from food companies and listen to what you have to say is pretty remarkable. I say I'm only a practitioner in that sense. I'm not out here understanding how to grow food. I can't grow food. I just haven't yet. I've been trying my hardest to grow food, and I can't seem to grow it yet. I can grow plants. I can keep them from not dying, and thanks to desk plants, I can actually grow plants without killing them. They're hard to kill plants, which is great. But pesticides are essentially the unknown culprit of disease in this world. And when you talk about pesticides, it's really interesting because pesticides can harm the body and it can actually harm our food. And it's something that we don't even know about. We really can't taste pesticides. All right. What are pesticides? They're chemicals that are sprayed on our crops to help prevent basically disease or cross-pollination of other types of harmful chemicals and compounds that could destroy our food. The problem is that pesticides are almost, to a certain extent, a necessary evil. And when I say that, I use that term just exactly like I said, because when pesticides were developed, they were developed to actually preserve the crops. And so now I'm going to get a little scientific on y'all, like I always do. So pesticides will be sprayed on foods to basically prolong the idea that they can grow in harsher climates. So you have, let's take here Central Texas. We can grow a lot of citrus, but we can also grow a lot of green leafy vegetables as well. Potatoes, poteet, strawberries are a thing. But what happens is you have nature that takes over, right? Bugs go and they eat stuff and they degrade it. And eventually farmers will lose their crops. So years ago, when farmers were developing wheat and soy and corn, these are cash crops that can basically make or break a farm. And if that's the case, farmers are only as good as their seasonal crop. So if it goes bad, they're not getting paid. So they went to all these troubles of basically having someone develop a way to preserve their crops to not only last longer, but fight off all these bugs that are coming in and eating them. So nowadays, when you look at the crops, and if you go to a farm, if it's organic, you'll see little holes in the foods and the leafy vegetables, and you'll see that somebody's eating it. Well, that's the nature. That's nature, right? But now pesticides basically block the foods from being eaten by those bugs, right? Because the issue is not the idea that you can't grow the foods. It's more the idea that they're going to get eaten up, right? And they don't want their crops to go bad because bugs are coming in, right? Even back in the day, gophers and squirrels, rabbits, all they go in and eat that. So they spray all the foods and basically kills off the animals from actually eating the foods. It's harsh, but it's true. Think about bees. There's even a spray that they'll stun bees with so that beekeepers can go in and actually take the honey. And if you talk to a local beekeeper, they'll tell you there's no such thing as organic honey anymore, right? Because pesticides are everywhere. Even if you raise an organic raised bed, there's no telling if pollination has come over and if bees come over and basically dropped off some pesticides. It's just very hard to tell. And honestly, there's no way to measure these chemicals. And what's so hard about these chemicals is that there's detrimental effects that it has on the body. Pesticides involve insecticides and herbicides and anything that will basically kill off the degradation and the decay of this food. GMOs are a little different. GMOs, genetically modified organisms, are the idea that you can prolong the shelf life of the foods or make them even bigger. This is a little different. We're not trying to increase the size of a strawberry. We're just trying to keep it from getting eaten by a rabbit or a worm. All right. Well, what happens is we absorb that. So everything you eat there, you absorb the nutrients, but you absorb the chemicals along with it. And pesticides are not measured. And I keep saying that over and over again because they're not measured. There's no way to tell how much pesticides are in your food, which is incredible. And if you think about it, we can measure everything from our B12 levels to our testosterone to our brain inflammation. I can measure my zinc levels. I can measure the pH level of anything. I can measure glucose with a finger prick. I can measure my ketones with a finger prick. But I can't tell you how much pesticide is in the food that I'm eating, which is pretty incredible. Now, pesticides will be something of a hot topic for the next couple of years here in Austin. If you actually go to the Capitol once a year, there's actually a march against, and I'll save that name for later. But the evil empire, when I say that, is the chemical plants and the chemical companies that have been around for hundreds of years that are developing these chemicals. All right. I'll give you a little bit of history with it. Bayer, which is a huge pharmaceutical company out of Germany, is now the owner of Monsanto. Monsanto created a Roundup, a killer, weed killer. It's called glyphosate. And the interesting thing about that, that's the number one weed killer in the world. You go to Home Depot, you go to Walmart, you can find it anywhere. We spray it all over our fields and our grass. Interesting thing is we had a decaying tree in our backyard a couple of years ago, and the guy who came and basically, cut it down, he says, "Hey man, your trunk is, basically decrepitated. Do you want me to take it out, or do you want me to just spray it with something where nothing around it will grow again?"
And I was like, what the hell are you going to spray with these? Well, I'm going to spray Roundup. He said within 6 feet of that spraying, nothing else will grow. That's not good. My kids play back there. I was like, no, we're not going to do that stuff. Found out apple cider vinegar and like Himalayan salt and bath salts come out, like just kill it. That's fine. But I'm thinking like, gosh, how detrimental is that to us if we're eating that all the time, right? It's the #1 weed killer in the world, and we have commercials for it all throughout our television sets that tell us to go buy this because it will get rid of all those dandelion weeds and all those little weeds that basically stick your feet when you're walking barefoot in the Texas grass. We don't want that, right? We want those nice, beautiful lawns. And those lawns that are year-round green, they have tons of weed killers and Roundup all over them. It's incredible because things need to be seasonal, right? Berries need to be seasonal, but now you can go to the store and get food year-round. I can get avocados year-round. I can get berries year-round. Anytime, I mean, like I said, seasonal food with pumpkins should be only in the fall, right? But we get squash in that year-round. And when we actually ingest it, we kind of figure out like, it's not a big deal because it's not symptomatically causing any issues, but underneath the surface, it's causing detrimental issues. Right now, Monsanto has been sued, 13,000 pending cases right now against it because of its link to cancer. Now, this third lawsuit that just happened was tremendously landmarkish because it was a $2 billion lawsuit in favor against Monsanto. Here's what happened. Farmer in California basically said, I'm a farmer. I'm spraying all my crops with pesticides to basically promote the longevity of my crops so I can make a living, right? And then what happened was over 30, 40 years, he developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he said, why? Why in the world would me being in touch with nature, outside all day, growing food, why would that cause cancer? He goes and he basically goes to a lawyer, and the lawyer says, you know what? I know what the culprit is. Were you ever told the pesticides and the chemicals you were spraying on your crops could be detrimental to your health? He says, no. How could I be told that? Because there's commercials for it on TV. I can buy it at Home Depot. I'm promoted that I should do this. Even the food companies tell me this is what you use. This is the standard. The lawyer says, no, that's not the standard. You have cancer because of this chemical. 13,000 cases pending against this company. And all along, you have government agencies that are protecting this company saying there's no link to cancer. There's no link to cancer. It's safe. It's a safe carcinogenic. A safe carcinogenic. Fucking causes cancer. And it says it's safe for you in low amounts. Well, this farmer, he wasn't drinking this shit. He was spraying it. It got on his skin. He was inhaling it. Got in his hair. They said, yep, you have cancer. And it was because of this. $2 billion in favor of this guy. And what does he care, right? He's like, great, I'm still going to die. What is this going to prove? How much of a hit is Monsanto going to take if they're bringing in quarterly billions of dollars? Is it that slap on the wrist? Maybe, but it's the third lawsuit against Monsanto that actually ruled in favor of the plaintiff. 3 recent lawsuits. I think what the one before that was 289 million in favor against Monsanto. And it's the domino effect. Why? Because you can't keep this a secret anymore. It's coming out. The EPA, which is designed as a government agency to protect our environment, has always been in favor of protecting the public, right? They have come out for the past 20, 30 years and said, no, there's no link to cancer. 3 lawsuits in a row that said, yes, there is. Yes, there is. There's a direct link to cancer, and here's why. But there's tons of research articles that have come up for the past 30 years that have said, no, there's no cancer link. Why in the world would this court rule in favor against this company? Why in the world would this company have all these research articles in favor of the idea that this carcinogenic is safe for human consumption? Well, we know why. Money. That's the issue, right? The #1 weed killer in the world cannot have bad press, but you can't hide this anymore. But think about this. Monsanto has commercials on TV for this stuff. This pesticide is banned in over 20 or 30 countries around the world. But yet here we have commercials for it. It's banned. Brazil says we don't want that shit here. No farmer in Brazil should be able to use pesticides like Roundup in order to grow their crops. But yet here Any kid can go over there and buy it from Walmart without any type of issue. Incredible. So what does this do to our bodies that would cause cancer? Glad you asked. So the idea is that it's a chemical that goes into our body. Our body doesn't know how to metabolize and detoxify it. And eventually what it'll do is it goes up into our brain and causes all kinds of neurological issues, right? It causes cancer, causes the cells that were once healthy to turn into mush, turns into toxic cancers, and then it disrupts everything. But it's not just glyphosate. We're talking hundreds of chemicals, because when you have the Roundup, they don't just have one chemical in there. If you look at the ingredients, there's like 20 or 30 of them, probably hundreds more. Because just like food, when they say natural flavors, you could just say chemical compounds and get away with it, percentages, right? There's another chemical called atrazine, all right? And you might not have heard of this, but usually it's the number 2 most popular pesticide out there. Why is this so important? It's an endocrine disruptor. There was a professor in California who did a research article on atrazine and said, we tested it on frogs. The frogs that were female wound up changing to male. And then vice versa. They changed from male to female. This happened with this chemical that is being sprayed all over your corn. So not only do you have to worry about GMO corn, but then you worry about the pesticides they're being sprayed with. And they were like, we're eating that shit. Your kids are eating that. And every day it builds up because remember, low amounts. But let's go back to the EPA again. The EPA is designed to regulate this. Why wouldn't they remove this, right? Because all the research articles that are fabricated have basically said it's safe, right? There was a Food Quality Act of 1996 that was actually passed by President Clinton that said, do the benefits outweigh the harmfulness of the chemicals? In this bill, in this act, it says, do the carcinogenics in the pesticides, do the harm outweigh the benefits and vice versa? It says that. It says it all through there, carcinogen. But then you have the WHO, you have the EPA, you have all these people saying no. In low levels, it's fine. Well, it doesn't tell me anything. We can't measure the levels of pesticides in our foods. So you can't tell me 10 units of pesticides are okay for me, atrazine for her is okay at 100. There's no way to be able to tell that. So it's kind of blanketed. But you literally have environmental agencies that are supposed to protect our food, protect us, saying like, well, everything's good. To this day, it still says that glyphosate is okay for us, for human consumption. Take it a step further. There's a chemical called DEET, D-E-E-T, D-E-E-T. It's found in mosquito repellent. Off. The number 1 mosquito repellent out there. DEET, when it's ingested, will cause neurological issues eventually down the road. If you go look at, the mosquito repellent, it says not for human consumption. You can spray it on your skin, but don't get it around your mouth because then it'll turn numb, right? It also says too that mosquito repellent is very bad for the young and the elderly. Why? Because those low amounts, they can't fight off whatever's going into their system. So you have mosquito repellent, which is the norm, right? Summer just passed. It's humid out here. There's mosquitoes still out. It is the norm for someone to say, here, have some off. I'm not worried about the PCBs and the aerosol and all that stuff. I'm worried about the chemicals that are going into the skin that are being seeped into my skin, because the farmer who got cancer from the glyphosate probably was also spraying himself with DEET, because that's what we do. That's what we're told to do, because that's what the commercials say, right? Not only do you need to spray, you need a candle burning, right? All the time outside around your campfire, around your barbecue, around your, just your outdoor activities with the kiddos. I'm not a good dad if I don't put mosquito spray on my kids. I'm the weirdo if I go and say, don't spray my kids with off. I'm the weirdo that says, I don't want mosquito repellent and chemicals on me. I'm the weirdo that says, I don't want sunscreen on my skin, because there's chemicals in that too. And guess what? Your skin is the number 1 defense of your immune system. Whatever it absorbs eventually goes into your bloodstream. So if I'm spraying this, lathering this, I'm blocking vitamin D, I'm absorbing all this, what is it doing to me long term? I don't know. I didn't even know if atrazine was in a lot of the foods I ate growing up. But you think about it, how much of an increase in chemicals have there been in the crops? I'm sure Viaz can probably tell us. I mean, it's been incredible, because if you think about the farmers, they have no choice but to do this. because they can't grow organic. Because how many steps does it take to get the certification, to get the food transferred over here, and then someone to buy it? It's so much easier for a farmer just to grow corn, soy, and even gluten, which is wheat. But take it a step further. When you go and you look at the foods that are being grown, they have naturally occurring toxins in them. Yes.
So how safe is the foods that have skin around them, like bananas or avocados from?
That's a great point. That's exactly what I was about to say next. So there's a thing called alfaltoxin. And what that is, it's actually found in like nuts. And it's like this fungi, kind of like moldy fungi deal that basically is a carcinogen. And it naturally occurs in like peanuts as well, and even grains and soy and all that. And a lot of times the coating of a food has a protein in there that protects itself against nature. So like, for example, tomatoes have the same thing. They have a chemical in there that if an animal were to eat it, some animals will die off of it because it's just nature. It's a nature defense mechanism, right? But what does that do to human consumption? Then you spray pesticides on top of it, and you're really like, tastes chemically, tastes sweet, but then you mix the chemicals to make it taste even sweeter. And then eventually it's just like a mutated form of what it used to be, right? And so this toxin that you're kind of referring to, which is usually found in like peanuts, for example, or even grains, it's usually fed to animals, like let's say cows, okay? The cows will eat that, and then they become infected. And then we milk the cows, and then we drink the milk, and then we become infected with it. Pesticides like glyphosate were designed to block not the production of this toxin in peanuts or grains, but block insects from transferring it over to other crops. So then those bugs pick that up, and then they become adapted to it, right? Because they're like, yeah, I'm going to die from this shit. I can't do that anymore. So then they become resistant to it as well. And then the chemical has to become what's called like a resistant mutated gene as well to it. And then eventually it's going to die off. So take bees, for example. Right now, bees are about to be wiped out. They're endangered. So every time you see a bee out there and you think about killing it, don't do it. I know there's anaphylactic shock for a lot of people who get stung by it, but think about this. Bees are vital to the ecosystem, right? I used to think they actually were the ones who were making sure avocados stayed around in season. They're not, but they have like, 100 different foods that they help pollinate. And right now they're about to be extinct. So what happens when the bees die off, right? It changes the whole ecosystem, right? Because they help pollinate things, right? And right now there's a pesticide, which is probably the unknown one. I'm going to mispronounce it. It's like neonicotinoid, I think is what it is, or something like that. Essentially, this one pesticide is wiping out the bees by himself, right? And I don't even know how to pronounce this word. How do I know how to identify the food, right? And so you have foods that have a layer that's protecting themselves against nature, but then we're also spraying it with something else to protect the food against the bugs. But then the bugs pick it up and then they start migrating and they pollinate other things as well. And so it's kind of this catch-22. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But then let's talk about the soil. The pesticides that are sprayed on this thing basically break down what I believe is the soil's microbiome. So we have microbiome in our gut lining, right? Which is essentially why we actually have an immune system. Our gut lining has more neurons and more immune cells in it than any other part in our body. Our cells that come from the gut also produce neurotransmitters like serotonin. How many people have digestive issues, right? When you take an antibiotic, you wipe out the probiotics of your gut, which is basically wiping out your brain cells, your immune cells, right? Take it one step further. The pesticides that are being sprayed on the foods go into that same type of flora, the microbiome of the soil, and it wipes that out too. So now you have soil that's being degraded over time, 30, 40, 50 years, and this soil is shit. It is shit because there's no nutrients in it, and we're growing food from it, and we're not getting nutrients from our food. We're ingesting it. All those chemicals are causing leaky gut, leaky brain, and all those chemicals go and stay in our system. And they stay there, and they stay there. 30, 40 years pass, and next thing you know, our gut lining turns into IBS, autoimmune disorder, right? All of a sudden, it disrupts our thyroid because they're endocrine disruptors, and all of a sudden, it disrupts our thyroid and disrupts our estrogen. Phytoestrogens, xenoestrogens, right? Same deal. And if you think about it, we don't really have a chance. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but what kind of chance do you have that you can tell me the chemicals that are going into my system right now? Because I can't measure it. Somebody asked me, how do you measure hair analysis? I don't know. I really don't know because there's no standard. Until the last year, the nutritional labels only had sugar as a gram or a 0 gram. It didn't say a percentage, but then it started saying percentage, right? How much percentage of sugar do we really need in our system? What's the percentage of chemicals that's okay for me to ingest? I think it's 0, but there's no way to tell. So now when we talk about food, and you hear me talk about it all the time, I'm such a fan of food, but every time I talk to a business owner in the food industry, I don't talk to them about, oh, what's your favorite food? Oh, what are you eating nowadays? What restaurants like to go to? I'm like, how the hell are we going to save soil? Because all the people that come in here, I mean, this week alone, 3 people with schizophrenia and bipolar, they've come in, all with irritable guts, all been on medication for years. They can't sleep. They're just being polluted, From my standpoint, I say methylation factor. That's the issue. Well, what does that mean? Okay, if you've heard any of our talks, the methylation cycle is involved in the liver. The methylation cycle, which is a proud reason why Slenderella was created, it helps detoxify the system. If somebody has a mutated NTFR gene or a problem with their methylation cycle, they're not going to detoxify. So they can't filter out all that crap that they've been getting from the food, all the stuff they've been getting from the soil. It just stays in their brain because of leaky gut syndrome and leaky brain syndrome, because the lining of the gut is the same as the lining of the brain. And the chemicals go into your brain and they stay there. So imagine this. We talked about aspartame, right? Fake sugar. MSG goes into your body. It stays there. Usually it's supposed to be metabolized, but through genetics, you can't get rid of it out of your system. So what do you do with it? You sweep it under the rug for it to come back later. And then we wonder why cognitive decline is such a big deal in this world. And we're like, wow, why is my brain turning to shit? Why can I not think clear anymore? Why can't I do this? Because there's literally chemicals that are going to my body that I can't even identify. I'm spraying them on my skin. I'm eating them. I'm ingesting them. And there's no wonder why that farmer got sick. 13,000 pending files right now. And the domino effect is occurring and it's happening. And the tide's turning. Is it too late? I don't know. I'm not necessarily worried about just the chemicals. I'm worried about climate control. Bees are dying off, right? The grass is growing longer, but the foods are getting more scarce and they're actually less dense in nutrients. So I don't know what the solution is just yet, but I think we need to compost our soil and regenerate it again. That's one start. I think we need to somehow get rid of these chemicals, but how do you get rid of them if you have government agencies that are literally protecting them every day and every night?
Yeah, a lot of the reason they're losing these cases is because they're finding a lot of falsified documents. That's why they're losing these cases. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I also think they might be losing some of these cases because there's a lot of representatives from Monsanto that go after the people who try to fight, and then the people back off because they're like, wow, they're threatening my family. I'm not going to pursue this anymore.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of that going on. But like these 3 cases, they've literally found like they knew about all this all along. They were just falsifying documents. That's why they're like, I mean, it's really hard to convince. I mean, if you have scientists in there trying to convince the jury that everything's fine, they probably would win. It's just that they're finding all these falsified documents, and it's like, well, you knew about this whole time, and like, so it's not an excuse anymore. Right? Like, it's really interesting to doing this research on this stuff.
Do you feel like this is a worldwide issue or mostly the United States with the soil and the food?
I think it's worldwide.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty incredible.
There's probably different ones, right? Like in different countries, you know, like even high fructose corn syrup is illegal in most countries.
Yeah, I just some places I've
totally
traveled,
cool
I feel
here.
like the food is less impactful than when I eat here.
Yeah.
You know, like I've traveled to other countries where I could eat anything and nothing happens. And here I come home and I eat something healthy.
Yeah.
And I immediately am just back to where I was.
I get it. I hear that with Italy. People go to Italy and they eat all the pasta they want. They're like, my
Right.
stomach didn't tear up. And which is
Yeah.
interesting. Italy's one of the countries that banned some of these pesticides.
Yeah.
But think about this, Europe, which a lot of times we compare our EPA to their government agency, which I'm not sure exactly, but a lot of those stuff is banned out there.
Right.
But yet it's allowed here.
Here.
And like since the 80s, I think like atrazine and DEET has been like banned. But then what's going on too is that the chemical companies like DuPont and Bayer and Monsanto have been dumping all that shit into the water. Like General Electric actually, I think in the 70s, the start of like 70s, are actually dumping all this stuff into the water. And so like the atrazine that I talked about changing the sex of the frog has been in water for a long time. In fact, I was reading something earlier that out of like they check like 800 different water systems in this country, and they all are polluted with this stuff. And so when you go to other countries, they have to, I don't know the policy in other countries, obviously, because I'm an American, but the idea is that if you have a country that's fighting to keep this away and they don't have the money to basically change their policies, then that's the reason why. So I can't imagine like in certain countries of the world that they're even an island, they would have to have someone who literally comes in and brings that there and says, here you go. And so I don't think it's a worldwide issue in the sense of like everyone's being affected, but I think everyone's in the known because somebody was affected at one point and they said, we're done with this.
I like how you said that sometimes you need to consider like if there are old systems in place, maybe you want to reallocate your time and not risk wasting time to fix the old system but create a new system, right? So I can't help but think of corporations, businesses, startups that might just commandeer the Heinz's or the chemical companies, right? And just do it the right way. But that itself could take a long time. So I look at the kind of the campaigner mindset or perspective, and I'm like, someone or some people can somehow convince the Heinz, the big chemical companies, the big pharma companies, and tell them like that short-term investment you don't want to make and completely change the system is worth it, and this is how, and you show evidence. But it's just hard to do that because most of these big companies don't. They're so short-term focused.
They won't. It's a demand side solution. So if you buy organic, they'll grow organic.
Exactly. Yeah, but then show them that if you do that.
Yeah, the power's in the consumer, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's why we like to
we're
focus
voting
on
with our dollars.
education, and it's
Yeah.
like, if you are not going to buy it, then
And you need to convince big chemical and big pharma that we really have the power. So if if I was Bayer, I would look at consumer trends and say, dang, like we can become the good guy. You know what I mean? Like our perception can change by how we do things.
I love your positivity and your optimism. Bayer is a German pharmaceutical company. They were funding Nazi research and using these same chemicals to basically kill Jews from back then. And it's still the same stuff they've been developing since then. No one shut them down. They killed Jews. They helped the Nazis. And right now, you go and buy a baby aspirin, and it has that logo on there. You go buy the little one-a-day gummies, and it has that little logo on there. So when you talk about the optimism of saying, hey, this big bad company, could you understand what you're doing to the public? They do understand. They're in a business, right? They're a business. The demand is there because
I think it's not naivety. I look at like I think like you talk to a bad guy and you know they're bad, and you tell the bad guy, look, I know your motive, it's money. And if you do the right thing, even though you have a horrible motive, which is just money for the sake of money, you show. I feel like there's data out there to convince. Like if money is the issue, we can convince these companies that you can make more money doing the right thing because you'll actually be in business longer. Because I think that the goodness of these smaller companies, I think Bayer in time, I don't know how long, but you just have to look at the nature and philosophical nature of goodness and good people. Like it does win out over time.
I do agree that
people make more money. These companies make more money on people being sick than well.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
because they're pharmaceutical.
There's a conglomerate.
Well, the other thing about it is that you got to understand, like they also have a lot of insurances to pay out these lawsuits that they're losing. So it's like it's really not like they're losing millions because that's really the insurance company.
Yeah. And I would love the idea that if consumers drove this to the point where, yes, we're buying only organic, we're not going to the doctor for a prescription, where instead we're getting our vitamins like we should, it's a different kind of approach, right? The tide's changing, right? Which is incredible because you have the internet, which is a necessary evil as well, right? You get a bunch of bullshit that's out there, but Dr. Google tells you one thing, you go to the doctor, you question it, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I don't know. Right? So then you seek other answers, right? But you can't keep this down long enough. But think about this. A lot of our friends are in the health and wellness world. I think there was a stat the other day that Rob Wolf posted that 80% of the top health and wellness websites in the world are basically getting compromised because Google changed the algorithm to actually keep people from searching for their websites. Why? Why in the world can I not sell a supplement online and say it does this for you, and all of a sudden it restores health? Why are people running scared? Why is it now that the Impossible Burger just came out and it's being across fast food nation to where people are now saying, yes, give me a vegan option. Great. But what's in that? Soy, gluten, canola oil. And I'm thinking you might as well be off eating a mushroom, portobello mushroom burger, black bean burger, or just eat some real meat. Right? But it's consumer driven. But then we're told something and say, all right, this is the new norm. Right? And influencers have such a big role. And that's why I think it's so incredible about the power you have with social media. If I see one of my favorite people buying one of those burgers, sponsored by it right there, you have other people that do it because of the trend. I mean, we're going to the Goop this weekend, right? I mean, somebody told me about some of the crazy stuff that's actually promoted through that magazine and how many people buy it, knowing there's a disclaimer to say, hey, we don't know if this is true or not, but we're just going to do it because it's you. Because the consumer demands options, right? If I have the option of saying I want an organic or a non-GMO burger, I know what I'm going through. But what about the people who don't care? What about the people who don't have the resources to care? If SNAP and food stamps and all of that and WIC and all that only promotes, GMO food, that's what they're stuck with. And I don't think someone living in East Austin has any more of a right or less of a right to eat healthy food as opposed to someone in Westlake, which is incredible. But that's where we're at now. And you go to the places like in third world countries, I was watching something with Bill Gates and he wants to basically get, water for everyone. And then he wants to eliminate polio, which is incredible. I mean, he wanted to eliminate polio. He got this close to it. And all of a sudden the terrorists came in and basically said, nope, that's not going to happen. And he, for the first time, was like, I don't know if I'm going to win this battle. But you have the most richest man in the world who is throwing billions of dollars to eradicate this, and he can't figure it out. And so it's like, well, when he go to Congress and say, here, have some money to influence this? I don't know. But the truth is, policy change only occurs in those rooms behind closed doors with a section like this, with something on the table for everyone to get some gain. And that's just true. That's just how it is. I got to feed my family. I got to make a living. If I can have good morals and ethics, hey, that's a win. But that's why I don't trust politicians. It's not the fact that it's their fault. It's the fact that they have people that are literally filling their pockets. For example, I'm a chiropractor as well, right? I'm a nurse practitioner and a chiropractor. So I walk this thin line of holistic and traditional medicine. The TMA, the Texas Medical Association, has sued the Texas Chiropractic Association every single year for the past 30, 40 years. The AMA has literally sued chiropractors to eliminate the profession, to call us quacks, to say you had no place in healthcare. You are not a real doctor. There was a lawsuit, AMA versus Wilkes, where a chiropractor challenged it and basically won. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of chiropractors, said you cannot eliminate this. But you know what happened? I have a chiropractic friend here in town a couple years ago, ran for office, local civil guy. And the TMA sent out postcards to everyone in his neighborhood who was going to vote. And you know what it said on there? It had a picture of a duck. It had a picture of a Dr. Pepper. And it had a picture of a chiropractor. It said, what do these all have in common? Right? Shitty. I'm not even going to say it because it pisses me off. And medical doctors have no idea this is going on. To the point where they're literally saying, we're doing everything we can to eliminate this profession. And yet these other doctors are like, I didn't even know that's going on. But it's not the doctors that are trying to eliminate another profession. Who is incentivizing these doctors to say, hey, why don't you do this instead? I mean, I got a postcard yesterday from a research department that says we will incentivize you a very hefty, payment if you give us research and feedback on the pharmaceutical reps that come to your office. You know what that is? They're going to give me an iPhone that they're going to pay for, or an iPad, and they're giving me $75 a month to tell me how my interactions are with the pharmaceutical industry. So they can, I don't know, better serve me and the public. I don't know. I won't have any farm reps that come in here. They come in here, they dropped off probiotics one time, which was weird because they somehow knew us, like they researched us, and they dropped off pharmaceutical vitamins. It was probiotics and it was P5P, B9, B12, the tanks. all sugar, all food dyes. I told the guys that we can't have that here. He goes, well, I'll leave you samples. No one's going to take that. Someone walked by, like, what are these here? I'm like, I don't know. Some rep dropped them off. First thing she says, would you take them? I said, nope. She goes, that's all I need to hear. And she just kept walking. Vitamin C now is a prescription, not as an over-the-counter, but as an injectable. So the pharmacies that we have to buy it from, we have to write this letter that says it's not the exact prescription, it's a variation of it. So basically they say, well, they get theirs from GMO corn, we get ours from a non-GMO source. Phosphatidylcholine was taken away. That was our favorite one. Phosphatidylcholine, I think it could be a key to brain health, and it was taken away one day. We just called pharmacy, hey, can we get 3 more vials? They said, nope, stop making it. Why? Well, you know who said we can't make it anymore. And I'm like, shit. So like a year ago, Baldwin and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, they're going to take away our vitamins. And what are we going to do? Like, God dang, like, we can't do anything. Right? And then fast forward a year later, I'm like, we're part of now the supplement industry that is a multi-billion-dollar industry where you have people that are going out of the woodworks to Whole Foods and Sprouts that are saying, we're taking control of our health. And that's exactly what this Lunch and Learn is. This is what this whole topic is you have to take control of your health because nobody will do it for you. The doctors aren't. And it's incredible because how many people that come in here and say, I have my labs in the past 2 years. I have this, I have that. I want more information. What else could I be doing? Why don't you tell other people about this? I'm trying, man. I'm on a soapbox right now. Y'all are filming this. We're streaming it live. People, I wish I could be there. It's not me that's making the difference. It's y'all. Because I'm only one person. I can't even stick my needles in like everyone else here. I have to have Charles do it for me because I'm talking, right? But the idea is saying you could take a little bit of this information, you pass along to someone else, and all of a sudden it's like you change the world. And that's what happens.
I think we have what you said about filming is a huge point, actually. I think if you're looking at changing the world, you have to strategize. You literally have to strategize multifaceted parts of betterment for the communal good of the world or whatever. And the first thing I think that's happened is we've gotten control of a tool that the government has used in the past to change how we think. Like literally consuming through our eyes changes how people think. And so we have our generation or a couple of generations prior, we have access to it. And so we've kind of normalized being cool, being kind. And so now it's cool to be kind. It's cool to be truly healthy. And I think that this is where that tidal wave that you talked about, like it's starting. I think we finally have this ability to show the real capital R side of capital G goodness. And that includes like multifaceted health that you're talking about. I think the strategy is literally just to keep making kindness, health, sustainability, intentionality cool. I think a big goal, CJ, we're talking about this, making a big goal is to normalize rhetoric, reason, philosophy in public schools. That I think once we start there and we now control how like things are perceived, how goodness is perceived, you can start changing our next generations in school. But it's creative lobbying, really. It's creative propaganda.
It is. I'll tell you this. Heather said something the other day which was incredible. We were talking about smoking. And she's like, it's dead.
Yeah.
Cigarette smoking's dead.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? No way. She said, think about it. And I said, well, we live in Austin where everything's banned, like, but everyone vapes. And she's like, but smoking's dead. You actually possibly have the first generations coming up that's not going to go run to the store to buy cigarettes. Not even the American spirits, which is incredible. It's just downright incredible, but they're going to grow up eating Impossible Burgers.
Let's have sawdust.
But there's still hope though, because I think if there's
better, yeah.
It's true. It's true. So you talk about the school system, that's the biggest thing, right? The bullying, social media. I got 2 kids that are about to be, we don't have any photos of them on the internet. Right? And then, so we have a family that posts a picture of them, like, take it down. I just don't, they're like, why? I'm like, I don't want it on there. Let them decide when they get older, have their own Instagram account or whatever they want. I just don't want it up there. Right? So when they grow up and they're eating vegan, organic, plant-based, basic, Omar's up at the front sometimes checking people out. He signs people in and stuff. I gave a shot to America at home the other day. She's like, is mommy getting her vitamins? I'm like, yep. He takes his little gummy vitamins every day that has P5P in it. And I'm just like, this is so cool. Smarty pants. That's right. That's right. And it's incredible because you're right. The tide is turning. And it's really cool. It's nice. It gives me hope. Just like John Mackey from Whole Foods said when I heard him talk, he said, this is the greatest time to be a human. Because we can do anything. In this collective room right now, I see some of the brightest minds I've ever been thankful enough to encounter in my life. And y'all are doing great things. I mean, look exactly what he's doing here. I mean, he's created this sticker that basically turned into a whole lifestyle. And now you see people around the world who basically have that sticker and saying, this is what I'm doing to improve the world. And it's a great thing because Austin is the epicenter of creation. And I do feel like the people that we encounter here that sit in this room have never said, no, you can't do it that way. It's like, you do it this way. You talk to this person. And then you have the person that has the power and influence come in and you say, oh shit, change is happening. Right? And so I'm optimistic about what can happen, but I'm on a crusade, just like every one of y'all. Every time that someone drinks a Slenderella, every time they get a shot, every time they come to lunch and learn, it's part of the bigger plan, and we'll never stop. Because what else is there? I'm not going to Mars. I'm not going to go live on the moon. This is here. I got kids growing up here, and they need to eat healthy food. We got to get in the school systems. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to get in there. And not just Trinity down the road or St. Michael's. We're going to get it in East Austin. Because when the scores go up from all the healthy food they're eating, and we keep PE and gym in the schools, you wonder why health has been restored and diabetes is fought and Alzheimer's might be on the decline. So I'll get off my soapbox now. Any questions?
How long do you think it would take to restore soil?
You can do it within like 7 years. It's an intense process.
7 or 8 years? And
Mhm.
you think an intense process is kind of a lot. Especially if people are continuing to farm during that time, right?
Well, here's the deal. There's a lot of farmers that are now farming hemp here that actually replenishes the soil and gets rid of all the bad
Yeah, it pulls
stuff.
everything out, but then people are
Right.
eating that after it's pulled all the toxins out.
Some are eating it, some aren't. Some of it's being made into food, but like it pulls it out really relatively quickly, to my knowledge. So
You can watch this movie called Big Little Farm.
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
I've heard about it.
You should watch it. It's
Is
like
it
it's an actual
available now?
documentary. I don't know if it's available yet, but
It's on
It's an-
Netflix.
oh, it is?
Yeah.
yeah, it's a real time documentary of how they. It was completely brittle soil, useless soil, couldn't grow anything, and over the course of 6-7 years, they're like, it's a vital farm.
I've also heard something new, talking about the price of redoing soil. Farmers that want to go from conventional farming to organic farming, it's now called like a conversion process or something, and they're still able to sell some of their products while they're converting their soil. They're using organic practices. And I think that's really good. Even though you're getting some of the chemicals still, you're supporting them to moving towards an organic farm. So just putting that out there. If you see like, it's not conventionally grown, it's called like transitionally grown or something, I would still support that. You know, you don't know where they are in the process, but you're also supporting them moving towards organic. So,
If you go to the farmer's market, like it's all going to be organic, even if it isn't certified, because getting an organic certification is really, really expensive.
and that's
So-
part of what it helps with is that process of getting certified as well. So,
And anybody that's interested, you can go to makesoil.org. And Josh has actually been doing a lot with that. You can make your own composting bin to actually start putting nutrients back in the soil, so we're no longer making waste.
Yeah. We have
So-
one in our backyard. It's just like
There you go.
this little bin, and anytime we have food scraps or like paper towels, we just like throw it in there. I spin it, I go back inside. It's like literally outside the door. I just turn, spin it, and I go back in. It's just
I also-
absolutely lose it. And I open it, and it's just dirt.
Yeah.
Like it was trash, and now it's dirt.
I live in an apartment, so I don't know my heart.
Yeah, we're working on a solution. Pretty good.
I would love one, but until then, like, I usually put it in bags in my freezer. And there's
Yes.
someone at the farmer's market who will take it and compost it for me.
Yeah.
And it's very so easy.
You might talk to the apartment complex as well and ask if you can put one in, because I know Josh started with his apartment complex. And the first one was actually at his place. So-
The city of Austin has a deal where they obviously give compost bins,
Mhm.
but they also, you can get free compost and mulch. Like all you have to do is just show up. It's off Ed Burleston or Bernstein or whatever that is off of 71. and you just show up and you have whatever you need to put it in there.
They'll give you a free composting bin?
No, compost. Like they'll literally
okay.
give you compost and soil and mulch, like whatever you need. City of Austin. It's off of I want to say was it Bluestein? Whatever. Yeah, it's off of 71. It's over just southeast of the intersection of 35 and 71. In the industrial part over there.
Talk about apartments for composting. A bokashi bin is what I have. So you basically put your scraps in there and then you fill it with the soil like once a week, and it's got some type of mold that doesn't smell. So it keeps the scent down, and then at the bottom you just have to release the juices like once every week or two as well. And then, no, I keep it in my house. I threw it away when I moved in with my parents, but I keep it.
I used to bury it in the ground. Like I used to start composting like 10 years ago before we had these cool trash cans. And we just dug a big hole in the ground and then fill it up, and then we would just dig another one and just keep filling them.
That's cool. That's cool. I do that too in the backyard. The trash can's there, but then it's like the fence is right behind it, so I just dump all the stuff in there and like all the scraps.
Yeah.
Why not? A little bit helps, right?
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, like he said, I asked that about, as we've talked about soil many a times. Like that for a while, that's all I was talking about. And I think the way that you would do it from a bigger standpoint is maybe you have a compost plant at a local farm, regionally. And then you basically tell everyone, like, you can come up and pick up whatever you need to refertilize your soil. That's a big effort, though.
Yeah, and maybe that's also the community garden.
True.
Yeah, save soil. Yours says
Make soil.
Make soil. There's a save soil.
There's a bigfoodfree.org too.
Yeah, and then
And
food is free.
they come and help you. I think it's like $100. They help you make a front garden in your front yard.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Who's that
Big
local
soil?
Gardenia? Not heard of them?
Yeah. Yeah, no.
What are they trying to do?
It's more, he's helping you grow like basil and mint in your front yard.
Text
Somewhere.
somewhere.
Yeah. I think you're thinking of the app, right?
Yeah, I forget his name, but he's a local dude doing
The food is free project is here as well. And what they're trying to do is install fruit trees. And maybe it's not them, but they're trying to install fruit trees in public settings, like sidewalks downtown and stuff, to where it basically helps homeless to where they can just pick up food and just eat there. It's an incredible concept, because if you think about the xeriscape that goes on around here, I'm like, why don't you plant some fruit trees? I just,
Interesting.
Like, I wouldn't put a lot of effort
And
into
then-
it, except for people who have, and
that's incredible, because I thought it was a genius idea. Like, it just makes sense, right? Like, I mean, like, prep to your door, y'all plant a tree for how many miles you drive to deliver food, right? I mean, how cool is that? But yeah, it's just more the idea that I don't know what, if you're stopping that effort, it's God bless. I don't know how you stop the idea from someone just planting a damn tree.
We're stopping the efforts from harvesting rainwater too.
And you say who is, right? That's the biggest thing. It's like who.
Them.
who spends the time and energy to do that?
I can imagine there's this board meeting of all these guys in suits in here. We got a problem in our hands, guys. How are we going to stop this? And everyone subconsciously is like, oh, this is so bad, but you know what? I got to keep my job. And yes, sir, that's a great idea, sir. And it's like, yeah. Because like you said, like Izzy's optimistic. I don't really think people are that mean and then intent, but
This is the best thing. Like, and they probably don't even have the mindset to think, wait, innately this doesn't feel right. They kind of are just like sucked into.
There's some people out there that are.
People in the boardroom have the money, and then they are the ones that are.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
You're not convincing people in the boardroom. The people in the boardroom are convincing everybody else.
Yes,
So,
I agree,
You're looking at like the 1%, like not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but like there's legitimacy to a lot of that. Like the pharmaceutical companies are in bed with the like Tyson and the big food people, and they're in bed with other people to like make us sick and everything like that. It's all one big thing, and people are starting to wise up to that, and they're starting to be shift and change. I mean, it goes way deep into politics as well. So like what we perceive, like people are starting to wake up to how things really are, and we just never knew it before. because it's all behind closed doors, but those doors are starting to open.
Well,
So
that's-
people are getting educated and empowered, and that's what we're doing here, correct? Because that's what changes.
I'm just a quick bro. I don't know if they're actually like sitting there trying to make it sense, but what I think they're doing is the pharmaceutical companies are selling the antibiotics and selling the growth hormones to the chicken manufacturers, and that's why they're in bed together, not necessarily to make people sick. It's because their product is being sold in a different way.
Well,
They're able to
they're all
remarket
trying to
it.
make money.
Right,
that's
but
the thing,
I just think they're
and-
remarketing. I don't think anybody is mean enough to literally say, we're gonna make Americans sick.
Well, then why would they put fluoride in the water?
That's
It
the difference,
was
right?
used
So
in the-
that's public health, but no, I think that like just talking about the pharmaceutical industry and the chicken farmers, they're just rebranded their pharmaceutical for food.
Yeah. I mean, you think it's business, capitalism.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, hey, I'm running a
They're all
legitimate
scratching
business.
each
They're
other's
doing,
backs.
they're technically doing a lot of stuff that's legal, but only because the laws allow it. If the laws change a little bit, then it becomes like that's not necessarily ethical, but it's like that's illegal.
Yeah, that's what
Right?
it
Like
is.
think about they say it's illegal to dump all that stuff in the water. How many of those businesses would get fined? But then it's like I said, a $2 billion slap on the wrist. I hate to say it that way, but what is it? What does it really do? It's not going to shut them down.
No.
But you saw what was going on with that East Austin restaurant and the other restaurant that was like basically suing them for the name rights. And it's like that would have literally shut down that mom operation. And for what reason? You
Well,
know?
that's why Monsanto like took over so many farms. And I found this out through a friend that actually knew people that worked for him. They would have drones fly over and drop seeds of GMO seeds so they could go and claim the land. from the
That's
regular
true.
farmers.
So that's what happens too, because technically that is patented.
Mhm.
So once it's grown in another field, they can say that's our property.
Yep.
And some farms have gotten shut down because I'm like, that's so messed up. But
But they're
it's
doing it on
genius.
purpose.
It makes
Yeah,
sense.
It's a land grab.
You might, I don't know, you go
That would-
look
that
at
would be true.
chemtrails and see what's
Yeah.
going on there too in Florida.
But that's malicious. That has to be discussed internally. in this-
Look at
this
Monsanto.
business. Yeah, it's malicious.
Do you think they're malicious?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's them doing it.
That's what I'm saying. There's